بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So we're on Hadith number 59. This is a real Muslim. And when we say real Muslim, it doesn't mean that the person that doesn't have these qualities, that he's not a real Muslim, that this takes him out of Islam. But what's meant by this is a real Muslim. You know, this is a Muslim who bikamali. All right, because whenever we say that, that this is what a Muslim's supposed to be, a Muslim al-kamil. All right, so in this case, but that doesn't mean that a person, if he does not have these characteristics, that does not take him out of Islam necessarily. But yeah, all right, safe. فين الكام؟ فين الهاتف؟ بقول جاهز له بس يرجع بسرعة إن شاء الله. All right. So this hadith is an Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhuma. عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال المسلم من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده والمهاجر من هاجر ما نهى الله عنه متفق عليه. Now obviously we understand that a Muslim is as far as the understanding of Islam as الاستسلام لله بالتوحيد والانقياد له بالطاعة والبراءة من الشرك وأهله. وأن لا يعبد الله إلا بما شرع. So we understand this understanding of a Muslim as a Muslim who surrenders himself completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with belief in his tawheed, and istislam lillahi bi tawheed wal inqiyad lahu bi ta'at, and he completely submits to his obedience. All right, and it means also to disassociate yourself with all forms of shirk and the people that have that shirk. That's the understanding of Islam. That's the understanding of a Muslim. But in this hadith, as he said, al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimun, he's talking about, again, this is from the takmila to Islam. All right, this is what brings the person to a completion of the Islam. But of course, he has to come first with the correct understanding of al-Istislam, lillahi bi-tawheed, to actually surrender himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. And this becomes like a, kamal, So he said, al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. So he said, a Muslim is the one who is safe. He keeps the other Muslims safe from his tongue and his hand, which means that he does not backbite them, he does not slander them, he does not cause any type of namima, which is like gossip spreading, and he doesn't cause any type of fear mongering amongst the Muslims. All right, so the Muslims are safe from his tongue and from his hands, because he does not beat the Muslims, does not fight the Muslims, he does not kill the Muslims, and he does not cause any type of dhulm. Because the main type of oppression, the vast majority of all the oppression of people, it comes from their hands and their tongues. Either you're oppressing somebody with your words or you're oppressing somebody with your actions and your hands. So that's why he specified these two things, the lisan and the yad. But that comprises everything. Because maybe a Muslim maybe a Muslim gets knocked down and you go and you stomp him with your foot. You oppress the Muslim with your leg, but still, that's not the ghalib. That's not the majority of the time. Here the Prophet ﷺ is speaking about where oppression mostly comes from. It mostly comes from the hand, the tongue and the hand. He said, well, muhajir, and the person who emigrates and leaves. Well, hijra is al-intiqam min bilad al-kufr wa shirk ila bilad al-Islam. It's moving from the place of disbelief and shirk to move to a place of obedience of tawheed and obedience to Allah, where you can practice your religion freely, even if that means that you can even make a hijrah from one ballad of kufr to another ballad of kufr, because maybe in this ballad, in this country of kufr, you're not able to practice your deen openly and properly. But in another country of the kuffar, you're able to practice your deen. And we have this is evidence from the first two hijrahs at Habasha, in which the Sahaba made hijrah to Najashi, radiallahu anhu, which at that time Najashi hadn't entered into Islam. When they went to him the first time, he had not entered into Islam. So it was considered a country of Nasara, of Kuffar. But they went there because they could practice their deen openly. So permissible to do that to get away from a place that doesn't allow you to practice your deen openly. But obviously, because I mean, you might go to another Muslim country. You might sometimes have to make hijrah from a Muslim country that doesn't allow you to learn the Sunnah. It doesn't, puts a lot of restrictions. And one of those examples is like the Emirates. There's so many restrictions in the Emirates. So you might leave the Emirates to go to another Muslim country like Saudi or Yemen, where you might be able to learn and practice your deen more openly without, with restrictions. Or like Egypt, for example. So Egypt, I think, is a lot more. I don't know. I've never lived in Egypt, so I can't attest to Egypt. But I know, like, Emirates, people are scared to say anything in Emirates. You can't teach outside of what you're told to teach. So, Allah Mustaan. But except for, like, the Saudi Masjid. If you go to the Emirates and the Sharikah, I don't know if it still exists, but back in those days, the Saudi Masjid, they sent students there and they have freedom to teach. Other than that, it's very hard to find durus in places like that. So if you wanted to sit down and really learn your religion, you might not find that facilitated in a certain country. So you go to another country. How many students left out of like Malaysia, Indonesia, and these are Muslim countries. They left out of those countries to other Muslim countries so they can learn their deen and practice their deen correctly. All right. So al-muhajir. But he's saying with the muhajir man hajara ma nahallahu anhu. So the real muhajir, the complete muhajir, is not just a muhajir that leaves from a Kafir country to a Muslim country to practice his deen. Because if he leaves, but he still has that love for shirk or that love for ma'asiyah in his heart, then he's not really making hijrah, is he? So the first and primary hijrah that the person has to make is the hijrah from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited. And this is the most important hijrah. Because without this hijrah, the other hijrah is going to be naqis. It's going to be very, very deficient. Because if he's making hijrah from the bilad al-kuffar, he's leaving from the kuffar countries to a Muslim country, but he still has love for that Western culture or still has love for sin. And then he's carrying all of that with him. He's carrying it with him to that other country. So it's still going to be bothering him. It's still going to be plaguing him. So the first thing that he needs to do is he needs to start to make hijrah from the sin. That's what we all need to do first. I mean, that should be our primary focus right now. And because if we're focused on making hijrah from that sin, that should keep the Muslims safe from our tongues and our hands. Because why? Why? You guys even listening?
No, we're listening.
I just had this feeling like I'm talking to myself, Huh? Oh, that's ice cold. Give me one of them, please. Hat. Let's start. Put that in I should put it in the car so it starts. Oh, y'all got water, but you can't drink it for another half an hour. Unless you want to. Oh, no, put it outside, actually. Or no, take it to the water fountain, pour some water on it. It'll start to melt each other. But all right, so I said, I don't even remember what I said because I'm sitting here busting on your heads now. All right. But the most important thing is that the person makes hijrah first from the sins. That's the primary important thing. Because otherwise his other hijrah is just going to be deficient. Could you imagine, okay, you leave the bilad al-kuffar, you leave the kuffar country to go to a Muslim country, but you still you get overseas, now you're in a Muslim country and you're thinking about all the stuff that you missed because your heart's still attached to it. You still get songs popping up in your head. You go to bed at night and you're thinking about movies that you used to like to watch and people used to hang around with and that you enjoyed, these kuffar that you used to hang around. So you're still leaving the country with that love in your heart for those things. So you're dragging that with you. So you really haven't fully made hijrah. You haven't fully made hijrah until you get away from those things. And that's what I was saying. I said if we're busy focusing on making hijrah from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from, then rightfully so, the Muslims will be protected from our tongues and our hand. And I said, why? Why is that? Because it can't be too busy with two things at once, can we? If we're busy trying to stay away from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram and make hijrah from those things, now obviously we're not gonna have enough energy to be speaking and fighting and oppressing people with our hands and our tongues. So Allah Mustaan. Wa ila huna subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.